Hello everyone, greetings from PayTabs team and welcome to Managing Merchants Dashboard tutorial series. In this series, we are going to take you on a journey to learn and discover the power of our merchant dashboard. Throughout the series, we will walk you through each of the menus and options found on PayTabs merchant dashboard and how you can easily manage it. So, let's get started. In this video, we are going to walk you through the payment notification section inside PayTabs Merchant Dashboard and how you can configure a payment notification and manage it through your merchant dashboard. So let's get started. The first thing you should know is that you can find the payment notification section by logging into your merchant account, then navigating to the developer section over here. From the developer section, you will find the payment notification section. And before we guide you through the details inside the payment notification section, we would like you to know that we have a fully dedicated solution article inside the developer panel solution article for the payment notification section. This solution article have all the details and all the different parts inside this section. If you are looking at any time to refer to a solution article that contain all the details inside this section, you can go through this solution article inside PayTabs support portal. And now let's get back to the payment notification and learn what is a payment notification. Simply, a payment notification, or what we call IPN, stands for Instant Payment Notification, is the idea of receiving a transaction response from PayTab's side. Why we highly recommend you to use payment notification or IPNs? Because that IPNs or instant payment notification are a server to server request that comes from PayTab server to your server in a secure way and a complete way that guarantee you to receive a transaction detail in full with all its details with no risk to be losing these details according to a customer behavior or a security behavior. So this is why we highly recommend you that you rely on the instant payment notification to receive transactions or receive transaction responses. Now, what happens here is simply you configure an IPN URL, and this URL that you can configure by clicking on the configuration section here, this URL will be an endpoint at your server, and each time a transaction is initiated inside this profile, PayTabs will send a notification that contain all this transaction details to the configured URL. Before we start the configuration process, we would like you to know that we have a fully dedicated solution article with the name How to Configure Instant Payment Notification that will guide you through how you can configure an IPN inside your PayTabs merchant dashboard and all the details found inside this step. Now, by coming back to the configuration section over here, if we are looking to configure a new IPN, simply what we can do is add a new IPN from this config option over here. And for example, here you will see the type of the IPN, or this page is the page you are going to configure on the IPN. So the first thing you are going to see the type, and we are going to learn about the different type in such a minute, but we just want to take an idea about what's happening here. What's happening here is that you are choosing the type of the IPN, then you are providing the URL that we just mentioned, then we are going to choose the allowed events, meaning the allowed events here are the types of transactions that you want whenever it happens to be sent to this URL. So for example, if you want to make an IPN that only receive your sale transaction, you will disable all of these options over here, for example. Of course, we need to leave it enabled because this enabled to make this IPN enabled and working, and this way you will only receive a notification for each sale transaction. However, if you want to receive a transaction for your OS transaction, your capture transaction, your void transaction, your refund transaction, your register transaction, you should enable all of that. Now, before we continue and configure an IPN for ourselves, we just want to learn about these types. We have 4 different types of IPN, which is the default web, the basic web, the SendGrid, and the pre-flight SDK. Now, we are going to take an idea about the differences between these 4 IPNs type. And starting with the default web and basic web, this can take us to the previous section over here inside the developer, which is the service type. Inside the service type, you will find the difference between a default web notification and a basic web notification. This is a simple idea or a simple way or the simple way you are going to receive the notification. Simply by choosing a default web or a basic web, you will be choosing the exact details that you want to receive. So if you want to receive just the basic details inside this notification, so this will be the notification, or the notification you will receive will look something like this. However, if you want the full detailed version, you should choose the default web will contain all the details related to this transaction. So this let us know the reason for this section over here, the service type section. So this is a way of showing you the different types between the default web type and the basic web type. And there is another point here related to security, and we are going to get back to this point in just a second. Just let's get back to our configuration over here and learn how we can configure a new URL. So in order to do that, I'm just going to search for a webhook over here so that we can choose and test any webhook, for example. Now I'm going to take this webhook URL, copy it, and then paste it inside my new configure. This one will be, I will choose the default web, I will choose the URL to be this webhook, I will enable all, and there's an option here to enable it with callback, and a callback is a type of one-time IPN. This is just a callback URL that you provide inside your APIs. This callback, once you provide, will send the same notification, but for this transaction only. What's happening here when we enabling this option is that we say, even if we are using a callback inside our APIs, we want to use this IPN also. So if you disable it and you are using a callback, you are not going to receive a notification, but you will only receive a notification when you are not using a callback inside your APIs. So now that we have configured and choose the default web, of course we are going to get back to the SenderGrid and the pre-flight SDK in a minute. We just want to test out what the default web IPN looks like. So now that we chose this one, we are going to add the IPN. Now, once the IPN added over here, you will be able to edit it from here. Of course, it will not be available to be deleted. You can only disable it by this, but you will not be able to delete it and do any edits upon it, of course. Now, this is just an idea about what you will see here, and you can see here that it's enabled. You can see here that it's updated also. Now, before we test out this IPN and see how it works, there is another section here related to user agent or IPN user agent. This section simply allows you to set the HTTP user agent inside the header sent from PayTabs to your site. If you have a certain security measure that need to have a certain header inside or a certain user agent inside the header, simply by editing the header and clicking over here, you will be able to choose the exact user agent you want to use or you want to be receive within your IPN request. Now let's get back to our home page, for example, and I'm going to test out a payment to see how the IPN work. And once we click on test like that, be redirected to the payment page. I'm just going to choose any random test card, and let's check the billing details is good. I'm going to pay. Now that we have paid, the transaction successful. As you can see inside my webhook, webhook is a website or a way of simulating an endpoint to see how a request is sent. You can see here that we have received this request over here, and of course if we have configured our IPN with the basic web, we will receive the transaction or the response that looks like the other one over here inside the service type, this one, the basic web. So this led us to the remaining two types, which are the SenderGrid and the pre-flight SDK. Now the SenderGrid is if you want to receive this notification through your email, not through a certain URL. So Here, you will need to use a third-party platform to handle the emails. The third-party platform will be called the SenderGrid. If you want to learn about how you can integrate the SenderGrid account, how you can create an account there and integrate it, then connect it inside here, you can check our solution article, how to integrate my PayTabs account with my SenderGrid account. Here you will see all the details and all steps you need to take inside SenderGrid, and after that take it inside the PayTab profile. But simply here what's going to happen is that you are going to make account at the SenderGrid, which is the third party platform related or supposed to handle the email, and then from this over there, from this SenderGrid account, you'll be coming here to configure a new IPN and add it. And once you add it and choose it to SenderGrid, there will be additional details like the API key for your SenderGrid account and the from and to email you want to receive this notification in. Now, this is the second type, which is the SenderGrid. And again, if you want to learn the each or every detail about how you can integrate this SenderGrid type, you can check our solution article, how to integrate my PayTabs account with my SenderGrid account. Once you configure it successfully, you will receive an email for each transaction. This email will contain the details that looks like this. If you're using the normal payment method, you will see here all the transaction details inside each email that's sent to you. And of course, for other payment methods that contain down payment like force or value, you will have a notification that looks like this for containing all the details of this payment method. Now that we have learned about the third type actually, which is the SenderGrid, this leads us to the fourth and final type, which is the pre-flight SDK. The pre-flight SDK is simply related, of course, from its name to SDK. And this configured, or this way, this allow you to make a second layer of, let's say, security layer to make sure that the same request or the post request sent from your side or the payment sent from your SDK is the same or contain the same details that was initially initiated. Simply, this is something related to your SDK to make sure that each payment contain your correct details. And simply by managing it over here or by configuring it over here, each time you make a payment through your SDK, a post request will be sent to the configured URL here with a header called client key as clarified over here. This client key is used for your SDK request as always, so you are be using the same client key here or there. And here you will be checking, or this SDK will be checking that, or would be receiving these four details, which is the card amount, the card currency, the card description, the card ID. So the response should be set inside this URL. So you will be providing a URL here. This URL should respond to this request with 200 OK response when it making sure, for example, you receive these four information, and these four information when you have verified it and make sure that these are the correct information for this order, this you will be responding to this request with 200 OK, meaning that if you did not, or this IBN did not receive a 200 OK response from your side, this payment will be declined. Now, this leads us to the idea of the pre-flight SDK, and of course, if you want to learn more about it, you can check the pre-flight SDK by just navigating to PayTab support portal and just click and write pre-flight SDK like that. You will see our solution article, how to configure an additional security layer for my mobile application via PayTabs SDK or pre-flight SDK. This solution article will contain all the details about how you can configure that, what is the cases that you are going to need something like that. For example, here the cases that you would need is like man in the middle attack, someone is changing the let's say the request detail inside your SDK, so you want to make sure that your request is the same. The issue of modifying or someone attacking your request detail is secured. This is the way that you want to secure it, and this is the fourth type of our IPNs. Finally, this gives us the four types of configuring a new IPN. And now that we have learned how to configure the IPN, the last part of configuring an IPN that we should take care of, which is verifying the IPN. Whenever you receive an IPN, you will receive also inside the request or inside the request header something called a signature. This signature is hashed from your API key. This is the hashed token from your API key that gives you the ability to verify that this response is actually coming from PayTabs and it's coming to you using your API key. And if you want to learn how you can verify this response, you can check our solution article, how to verify the response received from PayTabs or signature verification. And this will lead us to the third part of the service type section inside here. And you can see this is the IPN security. Here we are giving a sample that is also clarified inside the solution article of how you can verify this response. Now that we have learned how we can configure an IPN and how we can verify the response commit, this leads us to the final part of the payment notification, which is the email configuration. So whenever you are using PayTabs email service, like you are sending an invoice to one of your customer via email, for example, or you are sending a pay link to one of your customer via, let's say, email, and you want to make the sent from email is your email, not PayTabs email. So for example, if I have an invoice over here, or let's say I have a pay link. I don't actually have any pay link or invoices inside this profile. So let's navigate to another profile like this one. Go to invoices, for example. Let's say I want to send this invoice to one of my customer and I chose email. Here, once you show this email over here, the invoice will be sent from PayTabs email, no reply at paytabs.com. However, let's say you want your customer to receive this email from your side. This comes, or this allow us, or this guide us to the email configuration part, which is also done through the SenderGrid account. So you will also need to have a SenderGrid account, and then you will navigate to the developer section and navigate to the email configuration. Here you will be providing your SenderGrid API key, and you will be providing the from email that you want your customer to receive any email sent from your side from this email. And one of the powerful option over here, which is the transaction receipt. The transaction receipt will allow you to send a kind of or a form of receipt to any customer who pay a transaction in your profile. So whenever a transaction pays you any amount and you want to send them a receipt that you have paid this amount to this account from your email, just by enabling this option over here and providing the details, all of your customers will receive an email each time you initiate a payment for them. Now, if you want to learn, of course, the steps of doing that, we have another option, or we have a solution article for this part called how to configure. Let's navigate to it. I believe this is the best one to integrate my best account. Oh, it's actually inside the developer panel, payment notification. From the payment notification, we have over here how to configure the email configuration inside PayTabs. Over here, how to configure the merchant, how to configure the email configuration inside PayTabs account via SenderGrid. And if you want to enable the transaction receipt, you will see it over here. This is all the details that you need to know over here. There's another one thing that you should know, that this option will be found if you want to configure this email through your developer menu inside the payment notification, and also inside your PayTabs profile you will see over here an option to configure email, which is called email configuration. Once you click on it, it will redirect you to the same screen over here if you want to configure the email you want your customer to receive the emails from. This is just an idea, or this is the details you want to know about the payment notification section, and now we can move to the next part.